Yes, we actually have a lot of students who, after doing political science, go into the business world. So, I guess first I'll ask you, what was your path like? How did you like? You probably thought you would work in political science. So, how did you get from there to where you are now?
Well, I think it's a unique story to a certain extent. I think so. The To sum it down, I was directly applying to work. I got my degree specifically to work in the State Department. Right. That was what I went into. That's what I was passionate about. Still am. But life had other plans. So my wife and I, as many people probably know and relate to, we both met roughly at BYU, Idaho, got married while in school, and so we made the deal when we were on the verge of graduating that whoever got the job first, that's where we would go. Right. So she got a job through an on campus recruiting event with Vanguard. Her degrees in financial economics. And so that took us to Charlotte, North Carolina. So being that the State Department typically is going to send you overseas, that wasn't something that obviously meshes well because she has to stay fixed at a location due to financial regulations with the SEC, FINRA, et cetera. We stayed in Charlotte, and that was where I had to, begin to figure out, okay, what does the non-political aspect look like for me, and where I can take this.
So, did you ever think about doing graduate school or anything like that?
I did. I think to a certain extent, I think I just was focused on getting an income rolling. So while it was something to consider, I my work took me to a manager position within a dealership, and they're very time intensive. So I wanted to, but I was also working 60 hours a week. So it just was just not something I think was obviously going to work out. And then a year later, we had our kid. And so working the 60 hours a week and plus having a newborn during COVID just didn't really work out to make that happen.
So, there's nothing wrong with not getting a graduate degree, but I think there are a lot of students that feel like they sort of need to get a graduate degree. Like, what would you say to them?
So like if you're trying to get into like an MBA, for example, or just something generalized or something further into political science, I guess the question would be what it is, right? If you're trying to say, okay, you're getting away from the political science piece and you want to get into an MBA, with a lot of the people I've been speaking with, at least in my networking, a lot of people really say that if you have the business experience, that oftentimes is considered more valuable than an MBA itself, right? If I had spent the extra 2 to 3 years to get an MBA instead of getting the experience that I have now, I don't think I would have the same level of experience getting an MBA, right? Because you learn those things on the go. And if people are willing to start you from the bottom of, say, a manager position, then you learn those things moving on. And people will see when it gets past the point of a bachelor's degree. My perception is that if you're trying to get into something, again, I use MBA as a reference because that's applicable to my situation. Then people will see your business experience and potentially see that as more valuable. You just have to ace it. Just put your effort into it, and it'll that experience nowadays is starting to be seen as more valuable than the degree itself in many instances,
Yeah.
but not all.
So how did you position yourself? Like you have a degree in political science. How do you sell yourself to employers in the business world that's like, "Hey, I'm in political science, but I want to work in cars," or something like that?
So the way that I position it is so what I've always been told. So I've got a long time friend of ours who was also my bishop when I was, young in the church. He graduated in political science, but he went into program management at Dell. Right. And so the thing that really sticks as the fixed variable between private sector and government sector is the way that you dissect data and in analytics, and then you make decisions based off of what you're receiving, right? And so when I pitch myself to all these other industries, so far I've been in a couple of other industries, obviously non-political, and I position it as in I'm very data focused. I'm able to dissect these things, and I'm able to take a look at the nitty gritty of something and then convert it into actual actionable decisions and choices to be able to make a company grow and succeed. And so that's usually how I position it. And then I take my work experience to kind of further show that that progression.
Yeah, so were there classes you took at BYU Idaho that really helped you do that?
I I think that so I don't know if you recall the one I think it was the one class that I had with you. That was with our studio. I think it was the statistics
Mhm.
related one. That one was really rough for me. If you don't recall, I think I had to go at your mercy to actually pass that class a little bit. I was also getting, I was also engaged in getting married around that same time, and so it was a rough area. But statistic classes like that and the comparative politics aspect, while seen in from a political side, it still requires you to look at data from one perspective and then use a different data source to look at to compare to see whether or not there is a causation, a correlation, or whether or not you're seeing something that can be actually taken care of with that data you're receiving. So, for example, the most recent project or initiative that I've had to work through because I'm working at a digital marketing agency, we took data from, say, Google Analytics for traffic for a website, right? So we service a bunch of clients for paid social, so advertisements, and data from Facebook is different from GA4. So you're looking at, okay, how are our campaigns performing natively, and then how is it being converted into actual traffic, and then you can marry those two and make the proper decisions. And being able to take comparative data from the same campaign, the same channel, but looking at it from different lenses allows you to be able to say, okay, seeing this and this, A and B at the same time, shows me that I need to tweak this about the campaign, or I need to tweak this about how we're tracking it. And so taking that ability to take those courses, back to your original question, is understanding the necessity to extrapolate data and information from the sources that you have available to you.
So if you had known when you were a BYU Idaho student that you were not gonna end up at the State Department, or if you had known you were gonna end up where you are now, would you have changed it and majored in something else?
I think my emphasis, at least, I would change. Now, if I knew I was going into business, maybe I would have gone to business, right? Just something that was a little bit more generalized, because I guess to my discredit, I wouldn't call it discredit, but it was just to my decision making, I should have gone to something that maybe was a little bit more applicable. Because saying political science with an emphasis in foreign affairs doesn't do me a lot of value. But if I just say political science, then people still translate that into something. And so maybe I should have generalized a little bit more, gone to a different emphasis. I don't recall what different emphases you have available on campus nowadays, but I would say think accordingly in terms of, okay, if what's your plan B, what's your plan C, and then see if you're still set on staying in political science, then figure out what other emphasis there is that can still better assist you in your career path.
Yeah. Thinking just back to like BYU Idaho, things you did, things you didn't do. Do you have any advice to students at BYU Idaho that are maybe at the stage you were at where they're like, should I stay with this major? Should I do something else? Should I take certain classes? Should I minor in something? Do you have any advice for students?
Well, if you could minor in something, obviously do a cluster in business. I think that was I started doing that when I first started BYU Idaho. I was doing believe it or not, just because I got off the mission, I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I originally had started in CIT with the business cluster, and when I realized that coding HTTPS or HTTP coding was not for me, that's when I started getting into my general electives. I feel like I probably should have stayed with the business cluster to at least have a better general understanding. And that could have helped push me in terms of like going further in terms of advancing in my career, because I would already have a certain acumen acquired by that. But aside from that,
Did you
that,
did you ever go to like the career center or anything like that?
I don't believe I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was something I did. No.
Do you have advice for like internships or anything like that?
When it comes to political science, the more the merrier. So my internship was a work internship. So I worked with I don't know if you remember Spencer Flake. Yeah, so I worked with him as he was a campaign manager for a congressman in Iowa, and so he recruited me to be a strategist with the campaign. And so that was a great experience. Did a lot of stuff, was able to start really consulting and taking that type of information and you really utilizing the aspect of data extrapolation, making proper decisions, even on a political level. That was really enjoyable. But I wish I had an opportunity to do more. So if there were other internships, even if it was free, even if it spent a couple hours, or if what I've been free, without pay, take a couple of hours, even if it was remote, to be able to still say, "Hey, I did all these things." Then I just think the more hands-on work experience is always going to have a much stronger impact in your career and the ability to get hired.
Do you feel like your political science degree keeps doors open in the future if you decide you want to do something else later on?
Only if I really want to pivot back into political science, into the political aspect. So I think my perception, if I'm being candid here, my perception of a bachelor's degree is just to show that you've done the work, right? It could that's nowadays that's the basis foundation for a lot of these positions that are available in the market. So at this point, most positions, even as I am in LinkedIn, are just saying just have a bachelor's degree. Some say, oh, be a little bit more business oriented or do a little bit more in terms of supply chain management, right? Some have that preference, but nowadays people will say, have this experience, have the degree, or have this amount of experience to make up for it. And so, I mean, my answer would probably be pretty generalized for that one.
So I think, Brandon, you're a go-getter, right? You're not the kind of person that just like sort of passively lets the world happen to you. But I think there are a lot of students that are that way. And I think there are a lot of students that feel like I'll get a degree and then my dream job will be waiting for me and they just expect that to happen. What would you tell them?
Well, the one thing that I have learned very quickly in recent, even in recent years, is that no one cares about your career success more than you. So you need to understand that nobody's going to serve it to you. You have to go out and look for it. People are willing to give you the attention if you have the energy and the tenacity to do it. And that's just the way the world works. And I guess you could say, if we want to turn it into political terms, it's a very realist philosophy because if you have the power to do it and you have the power to be able to make yourself seen and known and you're willing to flex that power to be able to get what you want, then by all means the world will respond to you in a certain way that gives you the attention that you need to be successful.
That's awesome. Yeah, so true. Brandon, do you have anything else you want to share with students or anything like that?
I'd say I would say the piece that was important for me that I wish I could have done is really spend more time studying. Right, I worked at Melaleuca full time and tried doing the full time 15 credits a semester. And being married, it was doable. I did it. I think my GPA was like 3, but when you start, obviously, with all the things that you get from BYU Idaho for having good grades and your FAFSA and all that, I think it's important to try to dedicate as more time as possible to getting the studies done, get it knocked out of the way. That way you can get out there sooner. And I did it within the 4-year range, which is great. But if if I could have done it sooner and maybe sacrifice some income in order to get it done sooner, it's definitely possible. And I would recommend that you look at those options.
That's awesome, Brandon. Thanks so much.